received a number of questions from people that registered around, advice, and I think it would be helpful if you can offer some advice for, if someone's elderly, an elderly woman who's living alone or recently widowed, placed in a situation where he cannot socialize in the same way that he used to. So these all sort of fall into the same category of just, seeking some advice as to what do they do?
And I also think that there's the issue of just not knowing if you can do it. Maybe like a fear of stepping out.
Oh yeah, so really important questions. A few important things that we can do. So one is, I think that as we're going about our lives and some of us are super busy and some of us are maybe less so, but a lot of people just feel like there's kind of a daily churn. Even if you don't have like things to do, there's social media to check on, there's news to catch up on, it always feels like there's kind of a nagging feeling of like there's something else on my to-do list I need to kind of chug through. And I think one of the important things that I have recognized over the past few months is that human connection in our relationships is real work. Not just in terms of like effort that we need to put in, but it is like real work that we do in the world that is very important and is actually central to so much, to everything. And most of it, like, you can't put it in any way, shape, or form on your CV. You can't like put it into a job interview necessarily. It doesn't go into like your bio if someone's like, if you're doing you're on the news or something. But it is such critically important work. And that's something that I never really realized to the extent that I do now. Especially, I do have these young kids, and like the work that like goes into like, making sure that they have like, fresh fruit and they're like enjoying their blueberries is real work. And it doesn't add up to really anything in particular, but it is real work. So I think first, like, recognizing that it is something that goes on your to-do list. Not because it's a chore, but because it is an important thing that you do. Another thing is that it can be really helpful to decide that you're going to set aside some time every day to reach out to somebody. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 15 minutes. Ideally you spend 15 minutes, you call up somebody that you love, and you have like it doesn't have to be an hour or 2 hours of your day. Just call them, hear their voice, see their face if you can do a video chat. And that 15 minutes can be so rich. Longer is always better. But even that amount of time, you can become a part of somebody else's day, and they're a part of your day. And that can be so powerful in creating that connection. And it can be hard. Honestly, there are many days when I don't set aside that 15 minutes to reach out to call somebody, but I'll send a text. I've now on my to-do list, it says, okay, reach out to somebody every day. So I just send a text and it says, how are you doing?
Yes.
Haven't heard from you in a while, just checking in. And I've had people do that with me, and I feel so thought of in a way that you normally you would, because you bump into people and they say hi and you feel thought of in that moment, but we kind of have to create that bumping into by reaching out. Another piece is improving the quality of our human interactions. We get so distracted by everything. I mean, the number of times I've been on the phone and I've been checking my email or doing something else or cooking something, and somebody says, right? And I'm like, no idea.
Yeah. Deer in headlights.
And one of the keys to high quality interaction, it doesn't have to be that you're going on like, you're going on some like fancy like event with a person that like, and you have a like menu, like a carefully like curated like day that you spend with somebody. It can just mean that you put away your phone, you put away your distractions, and you just look at someone. Or if you're on the phone, that you put everything away, you just sit in a chair and you just talk. That has impacts on the conversation that you're having, because you catch those nuances that you catch what people said at all, to begin with.
Yeah.
But you catch like emotional nuances, things that are unsaid, much better when you're not paying attention to something else. And you know, there was a study that if two people are sitting at a table having a conversation, and there is a cell phone that is nearby, the quality of that conversation is worse. The perception of that conversation is worse. When somebody, when a spouse is like has their phone in their hand, it can make arguments worse. Because like, where are you trying to go? You're trying to like, you don't even want to have a conversation with me. And so putting away all of our distractions and improving the quality, and the quality is not only getting rid of distractions, but so one thing that can help with that is, you know, there's texting where everyone's doing different things and you kind of respond to a text and you run away and you do things. There's kind of emails where you spent time to kind of like type that out. Is a rung up, or can be a rung up, because sometimes it feels more formal. Talking on the phone, like, okay, I'm actually like, I'm not like having a conversation and texting you. I'm actually talking. And then being video chatting
Yes.
is higher up than that. And of course, being in person, which has been harder in the past 6 months. The one more tip is that sometimes it can feel, you can feel like there's just a barrier to kind of reaching out, and like you don't want to like admit to anybody that you're lonely, or like sometimes you're like, does this person want to talk to me? Like, are they really busy? Are they stressed out with life? Like, should I initiate this? One of the things that can help is to help people, is to think about like, okay, who in my life might need something, and either sort of ask them like, hey, can I help you out with something, or just proactively, like, you know, drop off some food at their door, or, you know, send like a fun book to like a parent who's struggling to keep their kids entertained. That sort of the helping role fits very well with what most women sort of like have in our like wiring anyway. And it can be a way to be like, make it a little bit less awkward, to say like, okay, I'm helping this person out. I'm not sort of admitting that I'm lonely, although we all should, because we all get lonely.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you can be like, okay, I'm gonna go get some groceries for this neighbor. I've heard people say like, oh, this random like neighbor just dropped off groceries, didn't ask me what I needed, but just dropped off groceries, and like, and it was so wonderful. And it could be like, I don't really like to eat this stuff, but it's still like that, like that that gesture can mean so much to people in this time.
That's neat. I want to add something to it. Thank you so much. And I think that's, you know, helping us think how sometimes we have to be intentional. You know, some things may just come naturally, but just thinking, no, I need to do something today. And let me think about how I can either give back or show some act of kindness. Or I have one other question that's related to that. What about, you have 2 young children?
Yes.
What about play dates? How are people managing that? Maybe in unique ways, or how are you doing that?
So I think it is one of these things that is very dependent on like each individual family. You know, the safest thing from a COVID standpoint is don't do play dates, right? For my kids are 2 and 4. And they weren't in school before this all began. They had some like families that they're like, you know, we would get together, but I have the huge fortune of being in a like 4-generation household right now, so they have plenty of stimulation. Like, it's not necessary to their like emotional well-being. They love having their online preschool, and they will be so excited to be with kids, but they're not sad. And so it's okay for my kids. I know for a lot of other families that's not the case, that they have seen their kids really kind of like take a nosedive in terms of not having their friends around them, not having social interaction. And so you really just have to like, you know, figure out like, you know, where do things rank, right? I was talking to a mom the other day who, this was over the summer, and she was like, you know, we've been so good at quarantining. We've been just staying in the house. We've been like everything with masks and everything. But this past week, I sent my kids to a 1-week socially distanced outdoor camp, because they're just going totally crazy. And it's made a huge difference. Like, they're so much happier. They're like engaging with everything more. And yeah, like, sure, a public health person was like, no, you shouldn't have any camps. But, you know, I think public health people would also say like, we have kids also, and like we understand like the emotional health of your child is also health.
Yes.
And so if you can do it outdoors, masks, socially distance, like that's the ideal. The other thing that can definitely be done is like finding other families to pod with, to have in your bubble. So like your family and my family, we have the same like general practices in terms of like how well we're sort of practicing the public health guidelines, and we're going to like decide that like our 2 families or our 4 families are going to hang out together, and if one of us like goes and does something crazy, like goes to a bar without a mask, we'll let you all know, and we'll just like isolate ourselves for a couple of weeks and then come back. But that can be really helpful. I mean, I was backtracking a little bit with my own family, my kids. We have taken them to some extended families, their house to play, because we did it once just to like say hi, and my daughter freaked out. She never had the social anxiety before, but like having not seen anybody for 6 months of her 2.5-year life, she just like was wailing, and I was like, she has 2 kind of like spectrums of what it might be. It might be that like we're totally awkward around each other, we're like suspicious of each other, and we don't really want to hang out. Right. And we're like, let's go back to all hanging out in our own homes. But I think also that, you know, that example of when you go on a walk, I think we have to sort of like recognize that there is, in addition to sort of like the fight or flight of like social isolation and loneliness, there is the fight or flight of there's COVID and we could all give it to each other. And so practicing when you're walking by that person, you pull up that mask thinking to yourself like, and you probably already do because you pulled up that mask thinking like, I'm taking care of you and you're taking care of me. And if that person isn't wearing a mask, of like giving them some like digging in and finding that like bit of like grace of being like, okay, that person isn't doing it, it's dumb. I have people that I love who do dumb things. I'm gonna do what's right and like protect this person anyway. I think a lot of us are on edge. We get like irritated more because we're in this crazy situation and we don't know when it's ever going to end, and it's just very anxiety provoking. And so we snipe at people and we get mad at people, and so like practicing giving people the benefit of the doubt of like, you're trying to like get through to like customer service on the bank and it's taking forever. Like just think like that person probably has like 3 kids like next to them trying to like homeschool, or their like mom is in like a nursing home and they can't go visit and they're really sad. Like there are things going on in everybody's life. And so practicing sort of recognizing that, you know, right now everyone's going through something similar. We're all like across the whole world, we're all in this place of battling this pandemic, and so we all have struggles that we didn't have a year ago. And recognizing that when we're interacting with, whether it's our friends or our family or complete strangers, in the normal course of business, I think practicing that will help us emerge less suspicious of one another. And I think like conversely, if somebody is yelling at you and like it's so hard not to react and like to be like, it's okay. But doing that as much as you can to recognize that like, it's not fair that they just yelled at you. It's totally not fair that person just yelled at you, but like, we're all struggling, and so take a deep breath. It's not all you, it's not all them, it's just the situation.
So if we go back to where we started talking about health, the impact on women's health. So for example, the heart health, the depression, the mental health. Have there been any studies or has anyone been looking into the reversibility of those impacts on health? So if you increase your socialization, does your health improve?
It can. It definitely can. I mean, I think about a conversation that we had with a doctor in the UK who had this patient who was, she was recently widowed, and she would just come into the office all the time with some kind of a physical, like a headache or just something like not right. Like everything was just like not quite right. And what she did was she, instead of sort of like just like throwing pills at her, she set up this patient with a volunteering program, and it was like a seasoned moms helping new moms
Mm-hmm.
program that they had, and this patient just stopped coming to the clinic. She started wearing makeup again and like wearing nice clothes, and like she'd come in like sometimes and like come in a little less frequently, and then just stopped coming in because she was so happy and like living her life. No,
Wow.
will it like cure depression necessarily? Like it can have it. I mean, it just depends. Everybody's different. Like, I don't want to minimize like people. There are people who have severe depression. You need to be, medicated and have therapy, and all of those things are important. You can't just sort of hang out with your brother and you're good.
Mhm.
But for some people, like that is what you need to get yourself out of that rut. And if you think about things like heart disease, or the sort of so-called sort of lifestyle chronic conditions, like when you're more connected, you're more likely to take care of yourself. You're more likely to eat better. You're more likely to exercise better. And so all of those effects can compound.